big week ahead. The first week of public hearings in the impeachment inquiry featured 3 career diplomats whom Democrats see as key witnesses regarding allegations that the president blocked military aid to Ukraine in exchange for probing the Bidens. Now, as we look ahead to the second week of public hearings, joining me right now in another exclusive interview is the lawmaker involved in the next steps of the impeachment process, ranking Republican on the House Judiciary Committee, Georgia Congressman Doug Collins. Congressman, good to see you today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be with you, Maria.
You know, a lot of fireworks in this last week of hearings. What was your takeaway?
My biggest takeaway was frankly, we're through another week and nothing has changed about the simple fact that the president did nothing wrong. There was nothing in the transcript. There was no pressure from the side of the Ukrainian prime minister, who said he wasn't pressured. We saw no holding up of money that they didn't even know it was being held up, and they got the money. But what we did see this week, as you talked about earlier with John Ratcliffe, it was that there was something debunked. Adam Schiff, again, credibility completely debunked. We saw arguments from the Democrats such as hearsay is really good evidence. It's really sometimes the best evidence. And then, of course, the wonderful one from Mr. Swalwell, who said that if you remove an ambassador from their post because they disagree with you, that was an impeachable offense or implying a impeachable offense. What we just saw last week was a completely unhinged response from the Democrats to a president that they have hated. We saw them actually controlling the narrative to such a way because they know they're not winning, so they just only have to be able to put out what they want. But then again, I saw something else. I saw a chairman, and the rules that we passed a week or so ago confirmed one thing. Just as we saw in our Judiciary Committee, when they didn't have anything else, they wanted to, what I call, bring a donor to work day, where they actually let one of their counselors, who's a big donor to the Democratic Party, ask questions of Corey Lewandowski. This is simply another process where they want staff members to ask, like Mr. Goldman last week, instead of members of Congress like Elise Stefanik and other people. These are the rules they set up because they want the narrative to be so tailored and so constructed to their one argument that they don't care. They hate this president so much that they do not care about process and rules. But then the worst part is they don't care about the substance. They know they have nothing, so now they're making it up and polling to figure out what is best to sell to the American people. Well, that's the story people should be writing about.
You make a really good point because they were staff lawyers able to ask questions, but not the same as when one of your colleagues, a duly elected member of Congress, tried to ask a question. Let's watch this with Elise Stefanik.
The gentleman will state her point of order.
The point of order is, will the chairman continue to prohibit witnesses from answering Republican questions as you've done in closed hearings and as you did this week when you interrupted our questions?
That is not a proper point of order. The gentleman will suspend.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I have a...
The gentleman is not recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of order.
The gentleman is not recognized.
I have a point of order, though.
The gentleman is not recognized. I do want to respond. I allowed the ranking member to...
I have a point of order.
The gentleman is not recognized.
Mr. Chairman, there are 4 transcripts that have not been released.
The gentleman is not recognized.
Holy
ranking member...
Wow, that sounded like Schiff's rules of the highway. You also want transcripts to be released. What is so important about getting the other transcripts that you want to see released before you ask questions of the new witnesses next week?
2 things there. I think, number one, the transcripts you just talked about are just simply so that you can add to the narrative. I mean, yesterday late, they finally released Mr. Morrison's transcript, which could be used, and frankly, following up on testimony that we've heard before and transcripts released before, Mr. Vindman and others, that he said that he was actually on the call, there was nothing improper, that he incorporated any input that Mr. Vindman had into this. So there's some things that just needed to be able to ask questions. But I want to go back to your clips there just a second. What it showed is, it showed that Adam Schiff is an incompetent chairman, as Chairman Nadler is on many occasions. A point of order cannot be ignored by a chairman. Now, they can rule against the point of order, but he has to hear the point of order. And to say that a member is not recognized simply says, this is a train, we're on the tracks. I'm sorry, Republicans, you're trying to lay on the tracks. Even if it's proper, I'm not going to have it because I only have one purpose in mind, is to impeach this president, and you're not going to get in my way. I don't care what the rules say. That's the important part that most people need to find. Most people may gloss over that. But at the end of the day, when the Senate looks at this and the American people look at it, they see a runaway chairman who has no idea what he's doing when it comes to actually carrying out a fair and honest procedure.
All very close to the time that we're supposed to hear from Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General. We're expecting that IG report soon. And I know you've got a deadline for certain reauthorizations of FISA, the FISA Court. Can you tell us what's happening there and what you're expecting from the IG report?
Well, a couple of things. One, the IG report. Hopefully, we're going to see around the first week of December, basically maybe about the same time the Judiciary Committee starts getting some of the Schiff impeachment inquiry documents. But I think the other thing there, that'll shed a light, was said earlier, this is going to be a large report. It's going to be mostly from what we're hearing now, probably non-classified, which will give a good insight to the American people on what was actually happening with the problems in our FISA court. So we're seeing that coming out quickly. But I think it also is interesting that this next week, that after almost a year of doing nothing in our committee, but basically wasting time on Russia and Mueller and all things that we can't do, we're now going to have a markup on FISA reauthorization on certain elements that are expiring at the end of the year. And what we brought up to the chairman is why would we want to do this now before the Horowitz report comes out, when we know that there are probably going to be recommendations that we can act upon in that report? So we're working right now to see, why are you trying to rush this when you had no interest in doing this, when you could have been doing it all year? And we're trying to get at least a short-term reauthorization to make sure that our intelligence community can do what they need to do, things that are both concerning lone wolf provisions, things like that. But we also want to get it to where we're not going to just reauthorize or pass over an opportunity to look at what Mr. Horowitz has found, because it is important that the American people trust the FISC, the FISA Court, and the process of the DOJ actually using it properly against American citizens, and how we've seen that probably didn't happen.
And real quick, after Intel, the impeachment goes to judiciary. You're the ranking member. What are you going to do? Tell me what that looks like when you get the impeachment inquiry in judiciary.
Well, if we thought the intel part of this was fast, wait till you see it get to judiciary, because they have already seen what can happen when you actually ask real questions in Judiciary Committee. They already had to take it from our committee one time. They can't take it this time, so it's going to be a fast process. But the American people needed to stand up and demand that there's actual hearings in our committee, with the first and foremost being Adam Schiff. If he writes the report, he sends it to judiciary on recommendation for impeachment, he needs to come and have the courage of conviction to stand before our committee, answer all questions, including the president. Maria, remember, when we get to judiciary, this is the first time the president's team will actually have input into the system. Right. If anybody thinks this has been fair to the president so far, when it gets to judiciary, this is our only opportunity. And if Chairman Nadler does not have the ability or the cooperation from his own party, or even the willingness himself to actually call real witnesses to discuss this before our committee, before we vote on articles of impeachment, then America can see clearly the sham of his chairmanship and really the sham of the Democratic majority in railroading this through against this president.
Just unbelievable. And it really strikes me that you have about 14 days left legislatively. Obviously, nothing else is getting done, Congressman. It's good to see you, and we'll be watching another important week this upcoming week. Congressman Doug Collins, thank you.